Oh, barnacles! This wasn't in the recipe. I thought I had it all figured out, but now I'm stuck in this giant bubble. How am I gonna get out of this one? I can't believe this is happening. I just wanted to make the best bubble buddy ever.
SpongeBob SquarePants, the happiest fry cook in Bikini Bottom, was in a predicament. A big, bubbly predicament. He had always been known for his quirky inventions and boundless enthusiasm, but this time his creativity had landed him in a sticky situation. He was trapped, utterly and hilariously trapped, inside a giant bubble. It was a sight to behold, a mix of comedy and calamity. It all started with his latest attempt to make a bubble buddy, but with extra buddy power. SpongeBob had been experimenting with new bubble formulas, hoping to create a bubble buddy that was bigger, better, and more fun than ever before.
Oh, barnacles! This wasn't in the recipe. I followed every step, but something went wrong. Now I'm stuck in this bubble and I can't seem to pop it.
He bounced around his square pineapple home, a prisoner of his own bubbly creation. Every attempt to escape only made the bubble bounce higher and higher, turning his home into a chaotic playground.
How am I gonna get out of this one? I can't stay in here forever. There has to be a way out.
Just then, his best friend, Patrick Star, a pink starfish with an unquenchable thirst for fun and snacks, sauntered by. Patrick was always up for an adventure, and today was no different. Seeing SpongeBob in his predicament, Patrick couldn't help but burst into laughter. The sight of his best friend trapped in a giant bubble was too much for him to handle.
SpongeBob, you look like a giant soapy jellyfish. This is the funniest thing I've seen all day. So, what's the big idea, buddy? New exercise routine? Or are you trying to start a new trend in Bikini Bottom?
Nope, just trying to make the biggest bubble buddy ever. I thought it would be a fun experiment, but now I'm stuck in this mess. But then, Patrick, I gotta ask you something. Something really important. Do you have any idea how to pop this bubble? I need your help to get out of here. Patrick scratched his head, deep in thought. He wasn't known for his problem-solving skills, but he was always willing to help his best friend. Suddenly, Patrick's face lit up with excitement. He had an idea, and he was eager to share it with SpongeBob. SpongeBob, I think I know how to get you out of there. We need to find something sharp to pop the bubble, maybe a sea urchin or a pointy rock. SpongeBob's eyes lit up with hope. That just might work, Patrick. Let's give it a try. The two friends set off on their quest, determined to find a way to pop the bubble and free SpongeBob from his sticky situation. After a bit of searching, they found a sea urchin. Patrick carefully held it up, ready to pop the bubble. SpongeBob braced himself, hoping that Patrick's plan would work. With a steady hand, Patrick brought the sea urchin closer to the bubble. With a loud pop, the bubble burst, and SpongeBob was finally free. He sighed in relief, grateful for Patrick's help. The two friends celebrated their success, laughing and enjoying the moment. SpongeBob had learned a valuable lesson about experimenting with bubbles, and he was thankful to have a friend like Patrick by his side. As they walked away, SpongeBob couldn't help but smile. He knew that no matter what sticky situation he found himself in, he could always count on Patrick to help him out.
What is it, SpongeBob?
Patrick leaned in close, intrigued. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, eager to hear what SpongeBob had to say.
Why? Why is the sea salty? I've always wondered about that.
The question hung in the air, as weighty and profound as a really light and silly question could be. It was one of those questions that seemed simple but had layers of complexity hidden beneath its surface. Patrick scratched his head, his brow furrowed in thought. This was a thinker, all right. He'd never really considered it before, but now that SpongeBob mentioned it, it seemed like a mystery worth solving.
Maybe the ocean is just sweaty? You know, like when we get hot and start sweating?
SpongeBob's eyes widened. The idea was so absurd, yet it made a strange kind of sense in the whimsical world they lived in.
Sweaty? But who would make the ocean sweat? It's so vast and endless.
I don't know. Maybe the sun? It's always working out up there, shining down on us. Maybe it's making the ocean sweat from all that heat.
Before SpongeBob could ponder this further, a new voice chimed in. It was a voice of authority, someone who seemed to know the answer to their silly yet intriguing question.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The ocean isn't sweaty. It's salty because of science. Everyone knows the ocean is salty because of dissolved minerals from rocks and stuff. When rivers flow over rocks, they pick up minerals and carry them to the sea. Over millions of years, these minerals accumulate, making the ocean salty. It's a natural process that has been happening for eons. SpongeBob and Patrick looked at each other, their faces lighting up with understanding. The mystery of the salty sea was finally solved, and it was all thanks to the wonders of nature and the passage of time. They laughed together, realizing how much fun it was to learn new things, even if the questions seemed silly at first. After all, every great discovery starts with a curious mind.
Rocks, like from space?
Well, some of them. Rivers carry minerals from rocks on land into the ocean. Over millions of years, the salt builds up.
Millions of years? That's older than my grandma.
Patrick, however, was fixated on the space aspect.
So you're saying the ocean is like a big salty soup made with space rocks?
Sandy sighed. Sometimes explaining things to Patrick was like teaching a starfish astrophysics.
Not exactly.
But before she could elaborate, Patrick hit them with his own burning question.
If the ocean is made of tears, then why aren't there more mermaids crying?
Tears? Patrick, where do you get these ideas?
From my brain, of course. It's full of them.
SpongeBob, meanwhile, was still stuck in his bubble. He bobbed closer to Sandy.
Hey, Sandy, while we're asking important questions, how do jellyfish even work? They don't have brains, do they?
Sandy's eyes lit up.
Now that's a question I can get behind. Jellyfish are fascinating creatures. They may not have brains like ours, but they have nerve nets that help them sense their surroundings and react.
They also sting. I learned that the hard way.
He rubbed his backside ruefully. Section 5, Squidward's cynical conundrum. Why me?
Will you all be quiet? Some of us are trying to enjoy our kelp juice in peace and quiet.
Just then, Squidward Tentacles, SpongeBob's eternally grumpy neighbor and co-worker at the Krusty Krab, stormed out of his Easter Island head-shaped house.
SpongeBob, you look ridiculous, even more so than usual.
Hi, Squidward. We're talking about important stuff like why is the sea salty and how do jellyfish work?
Why me?
Squidward groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. Section 6, Plankton's perplexing plot. Can money buy happiness? As if summoned by the mention of misery, Sheldon Plankton, the smallest and most ambitious villain in Bikini Bottom, suddenly popped up from behind a rock.
Why me? Why can't I ever get my hands on that secret formula?
Plankton's miniature wife, Karen, a sentient computer, appeared beside him.
Because your plans are always foiled by a certain porous yellow nuisance.
Plankton ignored her and turned to the group.
Tell me, can money buy happiness?
Everyone stared at him, bewildered. Mrs. Puff, SpongeBob's perpetually stressed-out boating school teacher, zoomed by in her boatmobile, narrowly avoiding a collision with Plankton.
SpongeBob, she cried, slamming on the brakes. Why aren't you in boating school? SpongeBob's bubble bounced nervously. I'm a little tied up at the moment, Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose.
Will he ever pass his driving test, she muttered under her breath before speeding off in a cloud of exhaust?
Throughout all the commotion, Gary the Snail, SpongeBob's loyal pet and voice of reason, despite only communicating through meows, simply watched with a knowing look in his large eyes. He slithered closer to SpongeBob and rubbed against his bubble affectionately.
Meow, he said, his voice a soft rumble. SpongeBob, understanding Gary's unspoken language perfectly, smiled. I know, Gary, I know.
Suddenly, from inside SpongeBob's pineapple, a booming voice echoed out.
SpongeBob, have you seen my lucky spatula?
It was King Neptune, ruler of the sea, inexplicably wearing a floral print bikini top. Everyone gasped.
Does this pineapple make my butt look big? King Neptune asked, striking a pose.
The silence that followed was deafening. It was as if the entire ocean held its breath, waiting for the inevitable reaction. The characters exchanged glances, their wide eyes filled with anticipation. The tension in the air was almost palpable, creating a moment of suspense that seemed to stretch on forever. Then, slowly but surely, a wave of laughter erupted from the group. It started as a small giggle, barely audible, but quickly grew into a roaring symphony of joy. The laughter was infectious, spreading from one character to the next like a delightful contagion. Soon everyone was caught up in the hilarity, their faces lit up with pure, unadulterated glee. Even Squidward, who was usually the epitome of grumpiness, couldn't contain a chuckle. His usual stoic expression softened, and a reluctant smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. It was a rare sight, and it only added to the amusement of the moment. The sight of Squidward trying to suppress his laughter was almost as funny as the joke itself.
SpongeBob, still trapped in his bubble, laughed the hardest of all. His laughter was a high-pitched, uncontrollable cackle that echoed through the water. The bubble around him wobbled and shook with the force of his mirth, making the scene even more comical. His infectious laughter was the catalyst that kept the wave of hilarity rolling. "That's a good one, King Neptune!" he shouted, his voice muffled by soap suds. The bubbles around him popped and fizzed, adding a whimsical touch to his words. King Neptune, with his booming laugh, joined in the fun, his regal demeanor momentarily forgotten in the face of such overwhelming joy.
The sound of their laughter echoed through Bikini Bottom, a reminder that even the silliest questions could bring friends together. It was a beautiful symphony of camaraderie and joy, a testament to the power of shared humor. The characters, despite their differences, found common ground in their shared amusement, strengthening their bonds of friendship. And as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the goofy scene, one thing was clear. In a place as wacky and wonderful as Bikini Bottom, there was never a dull moment. The vibrant colors of the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, reflecting off the water and creating a magical backdrop for the laughter-filled scene. It was a perfect ending to a day filled with joy and laughter, a reminder that in Bikini Bottom, every day was an adventure waiting to unfold.